Welcome, everybody. Luxury Fridays. I'm your host, Michael LaFido. You're in the right place. If you're looking to work smarter, not harder, you're looking to increase your average sale price, and you're looking for cutting edge strategies to differentiate yourself from the competition. From time to time, we have various guests on, whether it be lead generation, whether it be strategic partners that will help provide leads or help build your brand, whether it be your website, your lead generation. And today is a little bit different, but it's actually, I think, probably the one of the biggest foundational principles, whether you're going to have a successful year, whether you're going to bounce back from trials and tribulations, right? We talk about turbulence a lot in real estate. There's a lot of ups and downs, and we're going to talk about peeling yourself off the mat, if you will, to use a sports analogy. I coach wrestling for 3 years, and my kids wrestled for some time, and I love wrestling because it's a great analogy on life. Is you're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some, you're gonna have to pull yourself off the mat after getting pinned or getting knocked down, and that's kind of what we're going to be covering today. And I have a special guest, but before I bring him on, just some housekeeping items. Again, number one, if you have questions for me, or you're perhaps watching a replay of this, again, and you're not watching this live, shoot me an email, michael@marketingluxurygroup.com. Shoot me an email, michael@marketingluxurygroup.com. And again, for our guest or for myself, if you are watching live, type in your comments type in your questions in the comment section. You don't have to download anything. We're streaming this on multiple platforms, which is great. And just a couple other things. If you are watching a replay, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com. Our handle is @luxury-specialist. Again, YouTube has handles now. They released that less than 2 months ago. So make sure you secure your handle. Maybe it's at your last name or whatever your website is. Make sure you secure that. We have a bunch of free resources. You can go to joinluxgroup.com, join Lux Group. And big announcement is our next designation event is going to be in Mexico, in Cabo, on Friday the 31st. You can find out more information by going to luxurydesignation.com. Last time we did our luxury training in Mexico was in Mazatlan. It was for Keller Williams Luxury Mexico, and it was right before the pandemic. I presented on March 10th. I flew back on Thursday night, March 12th. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get out of the country. And as you know, the world changed. Friday the 13th of March is when a lot of the kids were in school for the last time, in some cases for a year in some parts of the country. So those are some exciting things that I wanted to share with you there. Again, just a couple reminders. We are always looking for guests on our live stream, on our podcast, on our show, where if you're a top agent, you're a newer agent, you have some success stories, you have some objections that you want to overcome, let us know what those are. We'd be happy, to feature you on one of our shows. We literally, just a few days ago, we were doing a 2-day training. We did a 2-day training. I want to pull that up for you. We did a 2-day training for the Red X, Real Estate Data Exchange. Perhaps you've heard of the Red X. We did a 2-day training on helping agents break into luxury through prospecting, lead gen. If you're interested in hearing more about that and perhaps getting your hands on the replay, it was a 6-hour training where we went over the ins and the outs and the best practices. We talked about lead gen, whether you do door knocking, circle prospecting, OPP, other people's properties, open houses, whether it be canceled and expired mailers. We covered it all. We went into the nit and gritty, the who, the what, the why, the where, and more importantly, we gave tons of content and valuable resources. And those are my good friends at the Red X. If you want more information on that, shoot a comment. Let me know what questions you have. Shoot me an email again at michael@marketingluxurygroup.com. Those are some exciting things that we covered. All right, setting the stage for today. My guest that I'm about to bring on, I've known for, and he'll probably be able to tell you. I knew him from his days at the Kinder Reese company, and Jay Kinder and Michael Reese ran a very successful coaching company. They're still doing some amazing things today. I would say I know Jay more than I know Mike, but great guys, and they're value builders and very smart at what they do as well. And there's a lot of people in the industry that have a scarcity mindset, coaching programs, or hey, you're not with Coldwell Banker, or you're dead to me, or you're not with Remax, or you're EXP and I'm not EXP. And this show is brand agnostic. I'm all about raising the bar for the industry, whether you're a newer agent, you're a seasoned veteran, you're a broker owner, you're a team leader, whether you have a luxury division, whether you are a C-level executive, as well as if you're a consumer. We'll have consumers pop on here. They want to know about the market. So if you're watching on a live stream and you're not a licensed agent, there's going to be something for you as well, especially with today's topic. So I am a big believer. Our designation, our Lux designation, is 16 modules. But I think the most important module out of all 16 is, honestly, it's probably the foundational module. And so I want to share with you that right now, so you can get an idea. Our designation, called Lux for short, is 16 modules. And if you look at module two is building your foundation. And that's a great segue for what my guest is going to be talking about today, because you might have a foundation, you might be running, your business is going well, and then life happens, whether it be divorce, whether it be financial stresses, whether it be legal problems, and pulling yourself off the mat. And I talk all the time that I think module two in my designation might be the most important, because whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. I say garbage in, garbage, and most people say out. No, I think garbage in, garbage stays. And so your mental toughness, okay, your mental health, building yourself, peeling yourself off the mat. We're going to go into a turbulent market. Some of you are already there. And what are you going to do when you hit those times? So today's guest is just that. We're talking about the art of a comeback, right? Once you hit rock bottom, what can you do? And with that being said, I'm going to bring on my good friend Wally. Wally, are you there?
Hey man, good to see you. Thanks for having me today. I
Hey,
appreciate it.
great to see you. So
Always,
I,
always.
I wanted to kind of uh, give a little bit of background of the topic, but I didn't go into much of your background because
Mhm.
you can tell it better than I can. So
Mhm.
why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are? But before you do that, when do you think you were working with Jay and Mike at those
I
events? And
was I was doing the math. I want to say we've probably known each other at least 10 years, a little longer than that, maybe 10, 12 years.
okay,
So in that
good.
range. And Mike would never tell you this, but I'll tell you what, Mike LaFido is easily one of the nicest, most caring people you ever meet on the face of the planet. He has a huge heart. He's a huge giver. When I was going through some of the stuff I went through, and we didn't even know each other that well at the time, he would hit me up on Facebook Messenger, ask me how I was doing. And, sometimes I didn't get back to him because I was going through such a tough time. But I'm telling you what, he is easily one of the nicest guys on the face of the planet. He's a great guy to align yourself with. This is not a paid endorsement, by the way. And I would gladly do anything for this guy if you ever need anything from him, because he is the salt of the earth, as they say. So anyway.
No, I appreciate that, and I won't tell your story. You can tell it, but I did
Mhm.
reach out to you because I believe that Jesus and
Mhm.
God put me on this earth to build others up, and I'm by
Mhm.
far not perfect, right? I mean, I each day, right, is a clean slate, and you're trying to
Right.
get better and you're trying to build people up. But I've always thought to myself, if I was at rock bottom, would I want others reaching out to me that were good friends,
Mhm.
and people that didn't even know me that well
Right.
checking in on me, and
Mhm.
I've had turbulence like we all had, and I've had those friends that were there for me, but more importantly, I had a lot of friends that I thought should have been there for me and they
Mhm.
weren't, and I remembered that, right? And so I'm empathetic to that, and so
Yep.
I reach out to others. I should do it more,
Mhm.
but when there's going through some turbulent times, and you try to build people up. There's an interior designer in my market that I knew through high school, and she's crushing it. She's kind of like the Chip and Joanna Gaines in my market.
Uh-huh.
And I just out of the blue, hey, I just want to tell you how impressed I
Mm-hmm.
am with what you've done. So, trying to do more of that. I could always do more, but with that, this is your baby. Tell everybody a little bit about you, and let's kind of go into today's topic, which is really how to build yourself back up when you've hit rock bottom.
So you want to talk about the positive stuff first, or do you want me to start at rock bottom? Where do you prefer?
Well, I don't want to be the negative guy off the bat, but on the same token, let's bullet point out, like, hey, where I was, where I'm at today, and you can go into some depth.
Sure. Okay. So my name is Wally Bressler. I have a company called Trigger Sales System. I specialize in every aspect of the real estate business. I've been coaching for about 22 years, but I really help people overcome the blocks that are in their way so they can create new triggers for good habits. The way I learned that was through a very tough life. Some of the stuff happened to me. A lot of the stuff I did to myself. I always start this story this way. My parents were not bad people. They just weren't good parents. And like a lot of parents, they really don't know what to do. And, I'm 54. So, back in the late 60s, early 70s, there was no such thing as child abuse or emotional abuse or sexual abuse. There was none of that stuff, And so, my parents were both raised in Italian families. You're an Italian family, So, back then, communication in Italian family was you got hit, you got yelled at, or you got food. It was one of those three things when I was younger. So, right, and right, you should be seen and not heard. Do it because I said so. Your mom can't throw a baseball, but she can hit you with a slipper at 20 yards. It's just the way it is, right? So, right, you're Nona. So anyway, the whole point is this. My dad took care of me when my mom worked when I was younger, and he had a terrible experience with his mother. He used to drink a lot. He smoked, and I got punished when I was younger. And one of my punishments when I was like 3, 4, 5 years old was to be put to bed without dinner. And that created like a real fear of being hungry in me. In fact, I remember in 6th grade, the very first day of 6th grade, all the other kids were having their snack. I opened up my Kung Fu lunchbox, ate my snack and my lunch because I was afraid I wasn't going to eat. And, and that blossomed into about a 45-year binge eating disorder where my weight topped out at about 480 pounds. So when I was 10, I was sexually abused. When I was 11, I got involved in looking at pornography. And when I was 12, I started having sex because I was just a mess. And that entire time I was bullied. So by the time I was 13 and 14, I had horrible self-esteem. I did not like myself. And I really just did not enjoy life, and, it was a lot of things I'm talking about. A lot of people go through, I found out, but what happened is at the age of 14,
they don't want to talk about it, right?
No, they don't.
Embarrassed. We got stuff that's in the closet, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And it's not their fault. You know what I'm saying? So well, what happened was at the age of 14, I went from being the guy who had things happen to him to be the guy who did things. And so, I had, lots of relationships with women that turned out to be nothing because I couldn't deal with it emotionally. I probably wasted about $4 or $5 million in my lifetime because I had a poverty consciousness. And, we grew up poor and I just didn't believe I was worthy of the money. Plus, I also had low self-esteem. So I was using the money to get people to like me, spending money on people to get them to like me, which, by the way, does not work. I ended up being unfaithful to my ex-wife 4 times. I've ruined most of the relationships I had from when I was younger. And then in 2005 and 2006, the mortgage market was like the Wild West. And I was working with a lender who I knew from high school time. And, we started doing real estate investing and he ended up lying about $15 million worth of mortgages. And so I spent a year in federal prison. I wasn't trying to steal money, but my name was on paperwork. And, I did look the other way on some stuff. So I had to accept full responsibility for that. I didn't see my children for a year. And then, but I also didn't work on anything except for losing weight. So by the time I was out of prison in 2014 at the age of 46, I was still addicted to sex, pornography, food, and money. About a year later, and you'll remember this, I met somebody and ended up going on being in a relationship with them. And so I was with them for 4.5 years. I asked them to marry me. They took my engagement ring and then they wouldn't move down to Texas to be with me. And in September of, we'll say 19, maybe it was, I broke up with her. And then I found out that she had lied to me about everything she told me, including the fact that she wasn't still married. She actually was. So she was married the entire time we were together. And so for me, that was like the last horrible decision in a string of really bad decisions. And I I couldn't take it anymore. So the next month I decided I was going to take my own life. And I mean, I was literally at rock bottom. The pain was just too much for me. And I was literally sitting in this, I mean, I've redone it now, but I was sitting right here in this area of my house, and was looking out the French door at their light. And all I'm thinking about is, how am I going to kill myself? You know, I didn't have a gun because I was a convicted felon. You know, I had medicine, but I didn't have enough to kill myself because I think I weighed like 440 pounds at the time. I was thinking maybe I could call the police and run after them with a knife, but they probably wouldn't kill me. And so, you know, I was just crying and sitting there. And then, you know, speaking of God, you know, my dad died when I was 23. You know, he had a heart surgery, you know, and had gout at the time, couldn't wear those compression socks on his feet. And 2 days after Thanksgiving, he died on our living room floor from a pulmonary embolism, you know, and he was 49. And then so I realized how painful it was for my family and me. And so God's like, hey, you know, you still have more to do. You still have 4 children yourself that, you know, need you. And so I made the decision then that I was going to start working on myself and finally go through what I needed to go through to help myself. And so, you know, in the last 4 years of working on myself and, you know, taking what I've learned as a real estate coach, but also as a person and a lot of the research, I've really found a way to help people overcome the blocks that are literally keeping them from enjoying their life and moving forward. I mean, I think, and you probably hear this all the time, and everybody wants to get into the luxury market. It's a great business to be in, great referral business. I mean, you are like the king of luxury. You know what I'm saying? You've turned it into a, you know, a science and an art, and people follow your program, they're virtually guaranteed to succeed. The problem is a lot of people get in their own way because they have the stigma that they're not good enough to go sell homes for luxury people. Yeah. Like somehow,
limiting beliefs. I like.
Yeah. Literally, I call them hidden identities, like beliefs about, you know, you have this identity, you know, we create these identities. Like, for instance, if you grow up poor, you know, there's probably a hidden identity inside of you that tells you that you're not worthy or that you're not good enough or that you can't have things. And so that dictates, you know, what you think you can and can't do. You know what I'm saying? The people that own luxury homes want the same thing that people who don't own luxury homes want. They want the most amount of money for their home. They want it sold in their time frame. They want great customer service, and they want to make sure that you're investing as much time, energy, and money as possible to market their home to get them the most amount of money. And most importantly, they want to trust you, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know any seller that doesn't want that, right? Now, granted, the marketing's different, and, you know, but the fact of the matter is those people want to be taken care of, just like the guy who's selling $250,000 house.
Yes.
But, you know, and so, you know, the reason people don't get on the phone is the same reason they don't go ahead and keep their gym membership and work out regularly. It's the same reason they don't stick to a diet. It's the same reason they can't keep a calendar. It's the same reason they're afraid to approach luxury sellers. All that stuff has to do with, you know, their self-esteem, what they believe to be true about themselves. And my research says that 60% of real estate agents have a very strong need to be approved of and liked. And it's so strong that it keeps them from doing the things they need to do to grow their business because they're afraid they're going to be rejected and not approved of.
Yeah, 60%. I think that's, yeah, I would agree with you, right? I mean, so many people, not just realtors, but people,
salespeople,
you know, kids on my parents on the sports teams that coach, whatever. People are worried about what others think more so, right? And so they're not themselves, and they don't step out of their comfort zone because what if, right? What if I fail? What if people judge me, right? I mean, luxury real estate. Well, I'm posting about this home. My girlfriend's telling me I'm bragging because I just talked about a house I sold or what I did, or like they're too worried about what others think.
Mm-hmm.
And you're absolutely right. I tell them, listen, are those people paying your bills?
Right. That's right. You know, they don't have to look at you in the mirror every morning, you know? So yeah. And you run into it all the time. Cause I'm sure, like, you have your event. I've seen your event. You like to have fun. You're always you're getting people to wave and be happy, and you're building people up.
Energy.
What's that? Yeah, but not just energy, but it's authentic and sincere, though. You know what I'm saying? It's not just hoopla, you know. Right. But, you know, and you're talking to people and getting excited, and I know people are coming up after you like, hey, do you think this will really work for me? Will this market my market? You know, what about this? What, you know, I've never done this, I've never done that, and like they're already defeating themselves before they even try. You know, and so what happens is you know, if you you know, let me just give you an idea of where this comes from. You know, if you face some sort of physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, or if you were bullied, or if you had parents that were divorced and the divorce didn't go well, or one of your parents was an alcoholic, or your parents didn't pour into you, or even if you made observations about not being good enough, you know, or you know, and whatnot, or somebody was a perfectionist or procrastinator, what happens is it triggers your fight or flight instinct. And unintentionally, I mean, that gets triggered. It's not even, you know, it comes up when it's triggered. And so, it starts out as like a little seedling, and you plant the seed of doubt or fear over something usually having to do with being accepted or approved of or being good enough. And over your lifetime, you continually avoid situations where that could get triggered again. And so it strengthens it, and it grows from a little seed to a seedling to a plant to a flower to a tree to a sapling to a bigger tree to a sequoia tree. And now you're 40, 50 years old, and you are in your own way. And a lot of people don't even know why they're in their own way. I'm saying, I just don't like the cold call. I don't like to knock doors. I don't like when people call me. I don't want to bother them. They don't need it for me. They'll probably work from somebody else. I'm not Mike LaFido. And all that is just those hidden identities, those limiting beliefs that they've created, and something that was triggered when they were between the age of like being born and 12. In fact,
so go ahead.
I just want a quick thing before. So the fact of the matter is that most of our personality and a good portion of our belief systems about who we are formed by the time we're 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, no. So for those of you that are just joining, or those of you that are watching a replay of this, I have a guest on today talking about how to pull yourself off the mat when you hit rock bottom. Now, some of you haven't hit rock bottom, but you have a pessimistic mindset, or you have things happen to you as a child that are blocking you from taking that next level, whether it be relationship wise, spiritual wise, physical wise, eating wise, sales wise, your business wise. You're absolutely right. In November, just a few months ago, I went to a Christian men's retreat, and they dive deep on some, my fellow attendees and these men were in tears talking about things that happened to them as a child, or the way they were raised and how it's affected them as a husband, as a father, or as a business owner. And so you're spot on. So that's kind of the problem. And one of the things that you do is you talk about solutions to help these blockages, or the trigger sales system, right? Things that can help trigger changes. So that's the mess. So let's talk about some ways that agents that are watching, team leaders, broker owners, or just consumers that are watching social or a replay of this can put some things into play to help change their system, or change the thing that they want to change.
Right on. Yeah. And so I think the first thing to realize is that if you have call reluctance or things that hold you back emotionally, psychologically, it's not your fault. Okay. Like, very few parents have the ability, especially when we were growing up, to sit and talk with our kids and say, hey, it's okay that this happened. What I'm saying? And this is fine. And this is okay. And understand the need to pour into their children and stuff like that. Like, when we grew up, it wasn't quite the same thing. Right. So, somebody did something. I don't believe that people's parents are bad people. I just think they were bad parents. And, I remember when I was in prison, I read a book. It said the 7 things parents do to screw up their kids. And I'm like, it was interesting. And chapter 1 was the opposite of dysfunction is dysfunction. So, your parents, right? They had their parents. And so, whatever, your parents got from their parents, you either got exactly what they got, which could be very dysfunctional. You got a better version of that where they made some adjustments and said, hey, listen, I see a balanced way to do this. Or you got the complete opposite, which is also dysfunctional. So let's just say your grandmother, your mom's mom, was like completely absentee mother, right? And just didn't pay attention to your mom. And so your mom, was pretty wayward and didn't get a lot of guidance, had some self-esteem issues. You either got that, where your mom left you completely alone, didn't pour into you, whatnot, right? Or you got, hey, you know what? This sucked for me and I don't want it to suck for Mike. Or your mom was a helicopter parent and she was around you 24/7, like the guy at the circus picking up poop after elephant, right? So that's what happens. And so it's not that our parents are bad people. They just don't do a good job. And so the first thing we have to acknowledge is that if we have these challenges, it's not our fault. But like Will Smith says, it is our responsibility. If you ever watch Fault versus Responsibility video, it's 3 minutes. He says it doesn't matter how you got here. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to take care of it. And so I've kind of broken it down into 5 steps. Okay. So, the first part of it has to do with radical honesty. And so step 1 is becoming aware. Like, let's really become aware of where this is coming from, right? I know I can't pick up the phone. I know I have these hesitancies. I know I I avoid confrontation and I avoid conflict. And I know I stay in relationships with the wrong person too long, but I don't know why I do it. Okay. So what I have my clients do is I have them take 2 note cards, Mike. And on the note card, I just ask them to say, what is the cause of my? And then they can put procrastination, or they can put perfectionism, or call reluctance, or, my inability to prospect, whatever it is, and put one on each card and keep one with yourself for the day, put the other one next to your nightstand. And by the next morning, you'll know, because your brain's job is to create clarity and understanding and peace for you. And so when you're when you're work at night, that's practically when your subconscious is the busiest. It's running around fixing things, right? And so so step one really is, you know what? Let's become aware, and let's the cause of it, right? You'll always find out, because your subconscious remembers everything you've ever tasted, touched, smelled, heard, or seen. It's all in there. Most of us have been pushing it down. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Vincent. So
yeah, we got some great feedback. Thank you. No matter where you're watching, appreciate any comments, any feedback. Wally's pouring his heart out here. Vince, my good friend in Florida, Lisa, some great feedback.
Thank you.
So Wally's talking about, what is the cause of my? So taking notes, right? Whether it be on a note card, like being focused on this, being aware of this, right?
It's radical honesty. It's being willing to look at it and say, you know what? I'm not living the life that I want. I'm not getting what I want out of life. And there's a problem here. It may not be my fault, but it is my responsibility. I had some hard things to look at. I hurt a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? My children all went through therapy. You know what I'm saying? One of my children decided that they were going to try and take their own life. I mean, it was bad, but a lot of it had to do with the decisions I made. So first we got to become aware. And the reason we want to become aware is because you can't fight a battle against an enemy that you can't see, and you can't hit a target that you can't see. But also what happens is, and T. Harv Eker says this, he's a Canadian personal development guy, the Millionaire Mind, you're probably familiar with that, right? So he calls it TFAR, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. We get a thought and a trigger, and then there's a feeling, and then that emotion, that feeling causes an action, then we get a result. But here's the problem. Most people go thought, let's skip over this emotion. Let's go right to action or inaction. So it's thought, smoking, thought, procrastination, thought, perfectionism. We skip right over it.
However, what's the R stand for?
Thoughts, feelings, actions, results, TFAR, right?
Okay.
Right. So step 2.
Put that on the screen for everybody there.
So step 2 is, let's go ahead and let that emotion come up, so that let's be aware. So, because there's a feeling that's supposed to come up. And most of us have been pushing it down either emotionally or with drugs or alcohol or food, or in my case, food or sex or pornography or money. But if we would just let that emotion come up and process it, it would actually get out and go away and probably be gone for good at some time. No, it definitely will be gone for good at some time. So I call it awareness, define, identify, mindfulness. So step 2 is you become aware of when the emotion comes up that usually triggers you to bail, right? And then you go define and identify, okay, this is anxiety. And
is define and identify part of step 2?
Yeah. So step 2 is awareness, define, identify, mindfulness. So awareness, define, identify, mindfulness. I'm going a little fast. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Sometimes I get on my Mack truck and I just ride. So so here's the thing. I say, okay,
here, but you get the idea.
Listen, you know what? Hey, you know what? Listen, we're not getting any points for spelling here. So So here's the point. The feeling comes up. There's normally a feeling that comes up when something makes us uneasy or makes us feel good, right? A lot of times we just ignore it. We go right to the those avoidance strategies. But if I would just say, okay, I feel a little uneasy right now. And what is that? Okay, that's anxiety. And it comes from the fact that, when I was younger, my mom and dad told me I was a piece of crap my entire life. And I've had clients whose parents literally told them they were pieces of crap. And then you go, okay, I'm just going to be mindful. And so mindfulness is just being present, right? If I'm thinking about the future, I get anxious and scared. If I think about the past, I can get sad and depressed. But if I'm thinking just about what's going on now, I can't focus on those things. So what happens is you become mindful. And the easiest way to become mindful is through box breathing. And that's in for a 4 count, hold for a 4 count, in, out for a 4 count, hold for a 4 count. And that gets you out of what they call, out of fight or flight and into what we call rest and digest, which is your normal relaxed state.
All right. So I'm going to have you, you're like me, you're Italian. When you get passionate about something,
I know. I'm trying to slow down.
No, I love it. It's great. So you're doing a great job, Wally.
That's step 2.
So step 2, but while we're talking about step 2, talk to me about that breathing technique you just talked about.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So here's what happens. Like fight or flight. If you
anxiety, you get anxious.
Right. So basically what happens is your body's getting ready to prepare to either fight or run. So if you get
flight or freeze, right? Like
freeze, freeze
is the other one. Some
yes,
people freeze when there's anxiety, something's happening. You see someone in need, and why didn't they jump in? Like 100%. They wanted to, but they froze.
Right. And so to your point, when you're getting ready to fight or freeze or run, your body goes, oh, we've got to preserve energy. So if you ever get a dry mouth when you do something that makes you nervous, it's because your body's turning off your saliva glands. If you ever feel the need that you have to go to the bathroom, it's because your body's preparing you to let everything out so that you can have as much energy as possible. And it shuts down, doesn't shut it down, but it really starts to take the energy from your digestive tract.
It's basically like a generator. I got a whole house generator.
Yeah.
Powers everything, but a lot of these generators say, what are the major things? The heat, the refrigerator, the sump pump. I'm going to put all the energy with the necessity, and your body's got this innate wiring mechanism to do this.
Yep.
And it focuses on what it needs during fight, flight, or freeze.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. So saliva goes away, bodily functions shut down. You have to go to the bathroom, and it expands your lungs so you can take in more air. However, if you just go into some breathing exercises and do that box breathing, which is in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, it transitions your body very simply from fight or flight to rest and digest. And then you can let those emotions pass and you can move on. Mm-hmm. But as long as we focus on the things that are scaring the crap out of us, that'll never happen. Okay. Yeah. So step 3 is you got to rewire your brain. Okay. I'm a big fan of Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. Right. You get 6 activities in the morning, rewire your brain. You got to start telling yourself stuff that you should be saying about how great you are, and he calls them savers. So there's scribing, which is journaling. And then A is for affirmations. V is for visualization. E is for exercise. R is for, R is for, oh my God.
It's all right.
It's not good. I'll get back to it. So,
by the way, Hal Elrod, Miracle Morning. I read the book. He, you speak at Jay and Mike's event, and did a great job. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. Like I'm a big affirmations guy, right? Whether you think you can, whether you can't, what do you talk to yourself? Lisa Hayes says it better than I can. Be careful how you talk to yourself, Wally, because guess what? You are listening. Right? So what are you telling yourself? And affirmations before bedtime, right? Like, I do back scratching prayers with my kids, and I'm feeding positiveness. You're a leader in your classroom. You build others up, right? I'm saying all these things before they go to bed, because I want it ingrained in them, not just self-esteem wise, but just subconsciously. So rewiring your brain. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yep. So I got the saver. So it's journaling, scribing, affirmations. If you're not great at affirmations, you can go on YouTube and you can put in self-love affirmations, and you'll get about 14 hours worth of self-love affirmations. V is for visualization. Okay. There's tons of guided visualization apps online and on your phone to help you take through, because you got to see it to believe it sometimes, and you got to see it happen. Speaking of your brain listening to everything, your brain also doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So if you visualize yourself accomplishing things, eventually your brain will go, oh, let's do that. Right. And so the E is for exercise. Got to get that exercise. And R is for reading. Okay. And reading personal development books, not just business books. And then the last one is, I had it here for a second. I talk about this every day. Is silence. So that's meditation. I'm a big fan of mindful meditation, guided mindful meditation. I have my clients go to the mindful movement on YouTube. And what mindfulness does is it teaches your brain to not let extraneous, disempowering thoughts into your brain, and it allows you to cool out when you're in fight or flight. So scribing, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and then your silence. Okay. And if it's 10 minutes each day for an hour, it'll change your life, because you're basically now in control of your emotions and you're in control of what's going into your brain. Right. Okay. Step 4, now we've got to really think about what we want for our future. Right. So it's really start thinking about what we want. And the strategy comes from Daniel Pink, right? Daniel Pink talks about how extrinsic or external motivators like carrot and stick don't work. We need to have something that's internal that's going to keep us going. So he uses the 3 words, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, right? So we're going to focus on autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So, you know what? My life's the way that I want it to be. When I'm running my luxury business the way that I want it to be, what does it look like? How much money am I making? Do I have a team? Am I wanting to make money whether I'm working or not? You know what I'm saying? And so let's look at what that vision is. And then mastery is what are all the things that I have to master in order to make that a reality? And usually one of those things is getting on the phone, right? One of those things is prospecting. One of those things is building relationships with people. A lot of people have trouble going to meet and greets and meeting people that are wealthy because they still have that feeling that they're not good enough, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so, and then part of that is purpose. Okay. And which is step 5, which is then find out your why. What's your true why? People struggle with this so much, you know, and I like Simon Sinek's book, Find Your Why. It gives you a great process for it. It's kind of broken down into 2 things. So the first half is, you know, people's why is usually rooted in some sort of pain, either pain that they don't want to experience again, or they don't want somebody else to experience again. Okay. So obviously I've got a lot of pain as a child. You know, there's a lot that drives me to make sure I get up every day and do what I need to do, even the stuff that I don't want to. You know, weighing 480 pounds, you can barely move. You know what I'm saying? I've lost a lot of weight, but it's hard. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to lose that weight, and I still have weight to lose. And so, you know, but you know what? My dad dying at 49 with me 23 and me having 4 kids, I can't do that. Right? So the first half is what's the pain. The second half is you've got to be able to contribute something to affect the outcome over it. So for instance, you know, for you, you're like, hey, you know, I want my kids to grow up with strong levels of self-esteem, strong levels of belief in their self, right? I want that. So you know what? And maybe it's because of how you grew up. Maybe your parents didn't pour into you. Maybe you didn't get the guidance or whatever you needed. And so maybe that's for you. And so for you, you're going to make sure that no matter what happens at night, whether you're in Cabo or you're home, that your kids are on the phone with you, on Zoom with you, or kneeling next to them, and you're doing the same thing so you can build up that self-esteem and that strength. Not so much they can think so they can always just think great about themselves, but that they can weather the tough times in life and get through the hard times, right? We're not preparing our children to be great children. We're preparing our children to be great adults.
Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. And that's why I'm such a big advocate for kids playing sports, because I know how much athletics did for me. And you know, and where I share that with you, I was part of some great football teams and we won state championships, and those coaches were as maybe more instrumental, and I had amazing parents, and I have amazing parents, but the mental toughness, right? Whether it be putting your hand on the line when you're tired and you don't want to run another gasser, whether you're beat up and you're hungry, and what are we doing for conditioning? Like, you know, that's you know, that's stress, those are anxiety, and you still you still got back in you know, in the ring, you still went out for the team, you still showed up for practice, and you know, you were married, I'm married, right? Marriage isn't easy, parenting is not easy. And I feel like the toughness, I had one team member once say, I don't know how you do it, like your toughness, the amount of crap that you take. I mean, I've had former business partners, you know, cheat on you, they take you on their, you know, on their word, and they throw you under the bus, and how do you bounce back? And don't get me wrong, I have turbulence like the best of them, right? And days that are better than others, but you know, you focus on that goal, you have that toughness, like do work is the mentality, do work, refuse to lose, prove them wrong is something I say all the time.
Yeah, I love that. You've had that
I don't know who them is, right? So Wally, I don't know who them is for you, right? And if there's somebody whispering in your ear, you can't do that, you're going to be a failure, you know, don't let that be your story, right? My story is, you tell me this, I'm gonna prove you wrong, you know. And we're talking real estate right now, but we're talking much more than that, you know. For those of you that are watching a replay or live, Michael LaFido here. I got a guest on talking about how do you pull yourself off the mat, how do you come back from rock bottom. These are the types of shows that I think are more important than, you know, in real estate, people are looking for this all the time. They're looking for the easy button. Give me some thingamajigger, some website to get me luxury listings, to turn on the lead flow. And what I'm telling you is we're going into a turbulent time. You know, I was just reading a quote yesterday, you know, Mauricio Urmansky from $1 Million Agent, you know, he's going to be at Inman, New York. I'm going to be there next week. But they were asking all these experts about the recession. Are we in a, and he goes, we are 100% in a recession. This is Maurice Romansky. But I'm just sharing that with you from the standpoint, I'm under the impression I'm a realist. Okay, but I'm an optimist. So the realist is, yeah, are we going through some turbulent times financially? Are we going to have some turbulence in this upcoming year?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the optimist in me says, you know what? Life is what drives real estate, Wally. Somebody's getting
Sure.
married. Somebody's relocating to Texas. Somebody's got that dream job they just took. Unfortunately, somebody's getting divorced. Somebody died. Somebody's expecting. That is what drives our industry. But
Right.
you got to have that mental toughness because
Mhm.
in our industry, okay, you log on to Facebook, hey, we just listed our house. And guess what, Wally? They didn't list with you, right? So,
Yep.
and you sold them that house. So, how do you overcome adversity? And there's a lot of ups and downs, and
Right.
there's a lot of easy buttons that people are looking for. I just was on 4 listing appointments last week in Fort Lauderdale and Miami, a 20-year-old young agent, and he doesn't know what he doesn't know, but they're used to the easy button. They don't know what they don't know, and you have to build that toughness up. I call it the wick. You know, hopefully in a relationship you do enough good things in your relationship with your significant other that they're more patient with you because you put in a lot of good things versus
Right.
keeping score. And every good thing you do, they focus on the bad thing, right? And
Mhm.
so rewiring your brain, you know, being awareness of things,
Mhm.
um, and having skills to to uh, to refocus. So my one son, I won't name his name, but he would focus on negative things. He talked to some people about refocusing. In other words, don't focus on that negative, but let's shift. You got to be able to shift onto something else. And so what are some solutions that you have for those that are watching? And then I want to hear more about your trigger sales system.
Yeah.
Uh, but 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 what are some suggestions that you have for those agents or those people watching that
Mhm.
realize, you know, yeah, I do have some things that I haven't resolved from
Mhm.
childhood or from a relationship, or you were physically abused, sexually
Mhm.
abused, mentally abused, you
Mhm.
know, you had a stepdad that never built you up, that was just
Right.
negative all the time. You didn't want to have people over, you were whatever it is.
Mhm.
what what are some things that you have to help, you know, trigger? I use the old adage from Sylvester Stallone. I don't know if the movie was real good as a kid, but
Over the top.
over the top, right? You got this here, and when he went from here to
Mhm.
here, it was game time. So,
Need to
what
stay.
are some triggers that you can have where
Mhm.
people can shift and say, "All right, let's move on."
Sure.
Because I'm sure there's days that you wake up and
Mhm.
your mind wanders there for whatever reason,
Mhm.
lack of sleep, lack of whatever. And what do you do to say, "All right, let's refocus"?
Gotcha. Okay. Hey, and I think I got us off track. You were stabbing the steps. Step 4 is figure out how to figure out what you want, and step 5 is determine your why,
Figure out
what
what
you want.
you
Step 4,
want.
right? And then
Boom. All
step
right, I'm
5
putting
is
that up there, right there. And then step 5 is,
find your why. So I think I got us off track. Sorry.
oh no, you're find your why is huge. I think, you know, listen, that is, it drives my wife nuts or whatever. I got visual reminders. It might be your kids. I mean, I got pictures of my kids right here. What
Mhm.
is your why? What's your driving force?
Yep.
You know, and that I would start with your why. That's your motivation. Like for you, it might
Yeah.
be 200 pounds. It might be,
Mhm.
you know, see the abs again. It might be my dad passed away at 49.
Yeah.
Start with the why. If the why isn't big enough, in my opinion, you're not going to be laser focused.
Right. 100%. And for me, it would be see the abs for the first time, but that's okay. Who's counting? Um, anyway,
There you go. Hey, you know,
they're there. I promise.
for me, I had to lose some weight a few years ago because my one son was making fun of me. I'm like,
What?
you know what? You didn't ever had 6-pack deck. I'm like, oh, I'm going to show him I
Yeah,
still
good.
got
Yep,
it.
yep. You're gonna have to do it. Yeah, I'm sure when you played high school football and college football, you were like about 8% body fat and twisted steel and sex appeal.
No,
So anyway, here's the
they call, you know what they call that today?
no.
Riz. My kids say Riz. Oh, Dad, did you have Riz? I don't know if it's RIS or
Yeah, I have no idea.
RIT,
Yeah,
but
no.
I like to think I had Riz back in the day. But
Yeah,
who knows? You
I
know.
mean, I played defensive line, so I mean, I was big all over. It didn't really matter. But anyway, so here's the thing. First thing is I want to go back to something you said earlier. Okay. I don't want anybody to have to hit rock bottom in order to make the changes they want to make or need to make. Okay. We all have enough whys. We all have enough reasons to do something, right? It's important that when you look at your why, that your why, like your kids are a who. Good health is a what. A house is a what. A car is a what. Money's a what. The why is the pain that drives it. And then what am I going to contribute in order to make that happen? Right? You know, I want my kids to be okay financially. I don't want them to have a poverty consciousness like I do. So what does that mean? Well, 3 of the 4 of them have credit cards. All of them have debit cards. I teach them about money. My son's getting his real estate license. I'm going to help him build a real estate portfolio that will take care of all of them after I'm gone. You know what I'm saying? So but for me, what does that mean? That means I got to get my butt out of bed every day, whether I'm tired or not, and I got to go work out. I mean, I put in one of those little walk pad treadmills next to my desk so that when I'm on the phone, I can hop on there and walk, you know, because I got to be around to do that. And then I prospect, I make phone calls. I ask people to get on their shows so I can spread my message, knowing that that's going to help me long term. So like you need to know your why, but most importantly, you've got to agree at this time in your life that you are not happy with what you have and that you want more and that you're willing to go find out whatever it is that's keeping you from getting what you want. Like you've got, and Tony Robbins says, true transformation exists only on the other side of true and complete honesty. And that's why I talk about radical honesty. Radical honesty is looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, hey, this is what needs to work. It's not about beating yourself up. It's not about taking somebody else's abuse on. It's really about, hey, listen, you know what, Wally? You weigh 450 pounds. You divorced. You left prison with 54 cents to your name. You're in a horrible relationship. You don't take care of yourself. You don't take care of your money. I'm not beating myself up. I'm being honest, right? These are the things you're not doing. You're going to die young like your father had. You're going to leave your kids without a father. You're not going to leave any life insurance to them because you can't get life insurance because you're too freaking heavy, right? And you know you're not going to leave a legacy. You're going to leave a lesson, right? And having a hard conversation with yourself, not beating myself up and saying I'm a bad guy, just saying these are the things you did and that you're continuing to do that are not going to serve you long term. And then the next part is becoming radically transparent and saying, you know what, kids, I did that. You know what, ex-wife Stacy, I did that. I did go to federal prison. I did blow millions of dollars. I did have irresponsible relationships with women, and just being open about it and owning it to the point where it doesn't matter what people say, right? Because they're going to say what they want anyway. And once you own it, they take all the power of the hurt goes away, right? If you do something and accept it, there's nothing somebody can say to you. Hey, while you're a convicted felon, you left your family for a year. They were on food stamps. They did. I did. Yeah. Right. What else can you say about it? We agree. And then the last part is radical responsibility, which means once you identify.
Is that number 6?
No. These are, I'm just saying, like, if you talked about how to make sure you get out of bed and do that, it's radical honesty, radical transparency, and then radical responsibility. So you get radically honest with yourself and own what you did and admit. And then radical transparency is admit that you did it to whoever you need to admit that you did it. So you own it and that it's out there. And then the last part is radical responsibility, which is taking radical responsibility for the change. And that means you go find somebody to help you. And the hardest thing for me, Mike LaFido, was that I had been coaching people probably 18, 19 years at the point my life finally hit rock bottom. And it was hard for me to admit that as many people as I had helped build great businesses and save their marriages and save their lives and all these other things, I could not do it for myself. We can't be our own coach. We can't be our own therapist. And that I needed help. And that accepting that I needed help and then doing the work is what flipped it around. So the great news is people have a Mike LaFido to go to. Yeah. But don't be an ask hole. You know what an ask hole is? An ask hole is asking Mike LaFido 10 times.
Then don't do anything about it.
Yeah, do nothing about it or do differently, right? Don't be an ask hole, right? Yeah. And it's just taking what's given to you and running with it. So that's kind of how to make sure you get out of bed every day. To get to that point, you got to be radically honest, be radically transparent, and then say, I'm taking responsibility to become the person that I want to be and need to be so that I can have the life that I want.
Yeah. No, that's I'm just typing out.
You talking about don't be an asshole?
Yeah. I gotta explain it here in case I get.
Yeah, just make sure the K is in there. If you don't put the K in there, it gets a little dicey.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't be an asshole.
Yes.
Where you ask questions, but you don't implement those suggestions that others have for you. You're absolutely right. So So first off, I appreciate your
Well, thank
honesty,
you.
your transparency. We're
Thank
getting
you.
some good reactions online, and those of
My
you that are
pleasure.
watching this,
Thank you.
again, my name is Michael Lafito. This is Luxury Fridays,
Mhm.
and you're listening to our podcast here, Luxury Specials Podcast, and we bring on various guests that have tough stories, have turbulence. Wally's not a luxury agent, but his story should be inspiring. He's giving you a blueprint on how you can change your past. You can't change it, but how you can move forward, right?
Mhm.
And so I use the word rear view mirror syndrome.
Yep.
Okay, you're driving in a car. There's a reason your windshield is 100 times larger than your rear view. Unfortunately,
Exactly.
too many people live in the
Mhm.
rear view mirror syndrome. Are you a victim or are you moving forward? Are you going to say, I can't change my past, whether it be, you're a female and or you're a minority, and there are some things that happen to generational stuff.
Mhm.
You can't change that. Let's learn from it, but it's hard to move forward
Mhm.
if you focus on the past. Bottom line,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so don't be an asshole and ask questions and not implement from people that are been there, done that, that are
Mhm.
smarter than you. Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. So
Right.
don't be an asshole. Okay, I got to be careful how I say that.
Make sure you spell it.
Oh, yes, spell it right now. I'm going to see my good friend Mauricio from the agency
Mhm.
next week, and they have a T-shirt that say, you know, don't be, and it's not that word. They use the real word
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
put it
Mhm.
out there.
That's
But
fine.
what's the cause of my blank?
Yeah.
Number one.
Right.
Number two, awareness, define, identify, mindfulness. Right. So being aware
Mhm.
of, why is it that when the going gets tough, you're a runner. Right? You leave the house. You
Right.
don't address something. Or I'll get it. Let's talk about it later. That's one of my things, right?
Mhm.
Let's talk about it later.
Mhm.
Why is that? Well, number three, you got to rewire the brain, right? You got to hit that reset button. That's not easy. That takes time. That takes a lot
Yep.
of repetition.
Mhm.
Okay. Number four, figure out what you want. Okay. And I believe that starts with number five. You figure out what you want when it's the why, and then you reverse engineer it.
Mhm.
And I also added in here, what do you want your legacy to look like?
Great
Right,
question.
for your kids, for your neighborhood, for your
Mhm.
school, for how are you going to give back, right? And
Mhm.
you got to have radical honesty, radical transparency,
Mhm.
and radical responsibility for your change. And don't be an asshole. If you ask somebody for their advice, somebody that's been there, done that, don't ask. There's a lot of gurus and coaches out there that haven't gone through the turbulence, okay,
Mhm.
like you. So, like real estate, don't ask somebody how to sell luxury real estate if they haven't done it. And in my opinion, if they're not continuing to do it
Right.
in 2023. So let's talk. You've been pouring out your time. We have about 5 minutes left here. I want to talk about your trigger sales system. If somebody
Mhm.
wants to find out more information about you, um,
Uh-huh.
and you put in a calendar
Yep.
link there. Is
Mhm.
that a good one for
Yeah.
somebody if they want to
Yep.
get in touch with you?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Anybody who wants to dig a little deeper and find out why they're a procrastinator, or perfectionist, or why they're unable or unwilling to do the things that's going to take their business or their life to the next level, anybody can get 15 minutes in my calendar, and I'll sit there, and it'll take me 10 minutes, and I can pretty much tell you exactly where it comes from. So you can grab some time. I'm in the process of rebranding my company. So right now my website is phonesalessecrets.com, which was the old name of my company. And I'll put that in there so you can bring it up, but it's going to be triggersalesystem.com soon. And also, if you want, you can go find me on Facebook. If you just go into Google and put at Wally Bressler, you can find Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can hit me up. And really, my goal and my mission here is to make sure that nobody has to hit rock bottom. That we all can find enough reasons to make the changes we need. There's enough business for everybody. There's enough luxury houses on the face of the planet for everybody to make plenty of money for themselves. But you've got to go ahead and do the work. And if you're not willing to do the work, nothing's going to change. I'm going to say this not to brag, but I need people to understand. I mean, I went from 2014 having 54 cents in my to my name, no house to live in. I had to live in somebody's house. I had to borrow somebody's car. I had no food. People had to lend me clothes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I had 2 boxes of stuff. And, I'm at a point now where, I just released a book last year. I was on national television. I have a company. I've got great relationships with my children. I'm the healthiest emotionally, physically, psychologically I've ever been. It took some time, and it took. Thank you. It took time and it took work, but you can do it. Anybody can do it. And I'm just telling you all this not to be impressed, but that you know what? It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how long you've been dealing with what you've been dealing with. It doesn't matter how badly you think you've done. If you want to change, you can change, and you can have the life you want if you're willing to do the work. And I can show you how to do that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate you.
Do work, right? I mean, just do it. The old Nike slogan. I mean, it's not going to be easy, and embrace the suck. Like that's not easy. Like the grit, the grind. Like my girls run a coaching program, and I'm friends with girls with grit. Like the grit is the day-to-day stuff behind the scenes that you don't get the pats on the back, you don't get the recognition. Embrace the suck, the grind, the grit. Do work. You just got to do it. You got to be consistent about it, right? The compound effect, like Darren Hardy, right? I saw Darren speak at Jay's event. Darren Hardy, right? The compound effect, doing things repetitive over and over again. You're talking about losing weight. It's easier to lose weight when your metabolism's of a 16-year-old or 18, 22-year-old than
Right.
it is in your 40s or 50s or 60s. But again, you might not see the compound effect immediately, but the grit, embrace the grind, and your why has got to be there. And you might need reminders of your why as to why you're doing this.
Right. Can I say one quick thing before we go, please?
Please.
Whatever's bothering you is not going away on its own. It will not go away on its own. I used to beg God. I'd be like, can I please be thinner tomorrow? Can you please help me? And God takes good care of us. He puts us in position to succeed. But, I would pray for all kinds of stuff. I would hope for all kinds of things. You know what I'm saying? And fact of the matter is that, the happiness fairy is not going to leave a box of happiness on your door. The mortgage fairy is not going to come and give you, money to buy investment properties. Right? It's not coming in a box. You've got to do the work, and it's an inside job. So, if you're a procrastinator, perfectionist, if you have imposter syndrome, if you're just not doing what you want to do, it's not going to change unless you change.
That's great. So I will, leave you with this. I'll say, some prayers for those of you that are watching this, that are listening this, that I don't even know who's watching this and listening, that maybe have some battles, and I don't know what they are, but I will pray for you.
As will I.
And so I appreciate you, Wally.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Bar, man. Trigger Sales System. Check him out. Again, I'll put the link up again for his Calendly there. 15 minutes. You want to pick his brain, you can go to phonesalessecrets.com to get in touch with Wally. Again, I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. So thank you. Keep it up, and appreciate you, bud.
Yep. Take care. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
All right, so I had Wally on, great guy, doing some amazing things. Again, I'm your host, Michael LaFido, Luxury Fridays. Do me a favor, if you got value from today's training, from Wally, from today's episode, leave us a like, leave us a review. You can go on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and we appreciate it. Again, my name is Michael LaFido. I'm the founder of the Lux designation. Our next training is in Cabo, Mexico. We got upcoming events. You can go to our event schedule. I'll share with you guys my screen so you can see that. And our website is simply luxurylistingspecialist.com, luxurylistingspecialist.com. And to figure out where I'm presenting next, you can go to Luxury Listing Specialist. There's tons of great drop-down menus, resources. We have gear. We got a free Facebook group. You go to the resources, you get consulting, the services. But if you click on that upcoming events, you see where I'm at next. I just did an event literally this week for the Red X boot camp. It was pretty powerful. But if you go to our events tab, I'm going to be presenting in Dubai coming up here in a few weeks. I'm excited about that. But feel free to reach out to me, Michael at Marketing Luxury Group. This is another Luxury Fridays. Again, Luxury Fridays. I'm your host, Michael LaFido. I appreciate your time. Keep raising the bar for whatever you do for the industry. Lisa, thanks. I appreciate this. Wally, I appreciate your time. Until next time, I'm your host, Michael LaFido. Keep raising the bar. Whatever you do, remember to prove others wrong and to build others up. Take care.